Hotline to higher power.
I'm Carl. I'm an addict alcoholic, and my sobriety date is August 22nd, 2014.
I'm pumped. I mean, I'm Lindsay. I'm an alcoholic. My sobriety date is September 6th, 2015.
And you're pumped. Let's not
And I'm pumped.
I'm pumped. So let's let the healing begin.
Do it.
This is SoberPod.
Soberpod.com. Yeah, SoberPod, keep it authentic, no facades. If it's real, then you know it's ours. Welcome.
SoberPod is a podcast dedicated to the idea that one addict or alcoholic helping another is crucial to building a life in recovery. Join us this season as we read from our books, one book being SoberPod's book, 366 Effing Days Sober, and another book being from Lindsey's, The Spirit Vigilante, or just Spirit Vigilante, but you can get her book by visiting thespiritvigilante.com. And of course, soberpod.com, whatever. I hate saying it sometimes. You know what I mean? It's like you have to promote it to a certain degree.
You have to say it.
Otherwise, this just dies, right? Like if you don't just FYI to the party people out there, or the ex-party people, if we don't say this stuff, you don't buy the book, and then the money to provide the things that we're doing doesn't exist, and therefore this doesn't exist. So it's kind of weird. It's kind of like putting a few bucks in your recovery basket, right? It's like that's what we need in order to survive. How's that?
And
go?
it's an invitation. It's not.
It's this is still free, right? So
Yeah.
So what do we tell the people to do? Go buy the books.
Yes.
Because okay.
If you enjoy these conversations that we have and the excerpts, I believe that you will enjoy our books. We both hold a conversational tone, and really, at least when I read Carl's book, it just feels like I'm listening to a friend. So if you enjoy the podcast,
it's like a long text from Carl each morning.
Yeah. Exactly.
And again, I do cuss, so there's that, right? So
Yes.
It's even more.
I don't, unfortunately. But
what do you mean, unfortunately? I think it's great that you don't. Okay. So Lindsey, did you have a good week? Are you settled in?
I did. I did have a great week. Yeah.
What'd you do? What made it great?
I don't know, now that I'm thinking about it. People always say, "How was your weekend?" I'm great. What did you do? I don't remember. No, I know that I had a good week. I got to see my chickens yesterday after a few days of not seeing them, just for different reasons. And so
I saw you carrying your chickens around on Instagram at some point. And I just thought, oh my God, this is the person that I've invited on the podcast. Somebody who just runs around and kisses chickens.
I'm upset. It is so I am so obsessed with these feathered creatures. I don't know how it happened, but
aren't they just dwarf dinosaurs?
Them.
Haven't we figured that
dinosaurs,
out yet?
They're so weird. I love them. How was your weekend? Yours is way more normal.
I was running around just kissing black widows, and because I'm so obsessed with black widows, Southern California and all. No, I was good. Yesterday I went to my first improv class, right? I haven't.
Oh, cool.
I've been in a one-time class before, but this will be an ongoing class. It's what they call improv, 201 or whatever. And so which is so I'll be doing that for the next 6 weeks, and then it results in the culmination is what do they call it? A showcase, right? So then you actually have to where the people that you invite, it's it's an early show or whatever, and it's just to get your feet wet with being on stage and that kind of stuff. So that'll be in 6 weeks. So kind of interesting.
That's exciting.
Yeah, we'll see how that works. It's fun stuff. I just love getting out and just doing other weird, funky stuff, and then watching other people put their foot in their mouths rather than me.
Right.
Because I'm always the one, or used to always be the one, and just to watch somebody else do it for once was really fun.
You like that? It's like secondhand embarrassment.
Oh my God, no! I put my head in my hands. It was cringy, and it was just let me just tell you. I'm not even going to tell you what it was, but it was really racist, right? And I was just like, and I just put my head in my hands and I just sat down. Everybody was standing too. And I'm like, I can't even stand anymore. I'm like, but it was just, I love just to watch that squirm happen. I don't know what
It's like
it
a
is
train
about it.
wreck.
Yeah,
Like,
you just
can't look away.
and I just gotta like shake my head and then not make eye contact with the guy for many hours after
Ever
that.
again.
Yeah. Okay. So that was fun stuff. Okay, so what are we doing here? We're talking about sobriety, because how does that relate to sobriety? How does any of this relate to sobriety? Well, I guess it's just, we're living our daily lives, right? We're living our what do you say? What is your catchphrase again? Trusting your truth. And that's kind of how you walk into the world every day, right? So I guess that's how it relates. Is we're just sharing our little days and how we're getting by.
Well, we have a choice today of how we spend our days, and I don't think we did before.
True that, homie. And that ties back to our last episode. So if you want to go back to our last episode,
Yes.
Look at that.
Yes.
Little tie-ins. Nice.
What was the title of the last episode?
How to choke your chicken.
That's right. That's
No,
right.
I even forget what it was. What was it?
I don't know. It was really good.
Insert title here. Okay.
Yes, insert
So-
title here. Don't say choke your chicken, because I can't agree to that on air.
Okay. So today we're going to talk about, as you probably have already heard, we're going to talk about, I guess, more or less the concepts of higher powers. The reading from today from the book 366 Effing Days Sober is ironically, not ironically, based around, connecting with a higher power. So, especially in recovery, as we do. So, Lindsey, do you want to start us off? Do you want me to read? Do you want to read? Pick a number. Between one
I'll
and
start us off.
Okay.
I think mine will be a nice segue into yours. So.
Oh yeah, you have your.
Oh yeah. Do you want to do yours? Do you want to?
No. I
yours
want you to do yours first. I totally forgot you were doing yours too.
Oh,
so.
okay.
So go ahead.
Yeah, so this is from my book, Spirit Vigilante, that I have with me because I came prepared today. So chapter 2 is called Allow, and it's allowing for new possibilities because I like that word. It feels very gentle to me. So I'm talking about how I fought tooth and nail to make things happen my way, and I had to become willing to admit that I couldn't do it alone. And I say, some refer to this attitude of seeking help as surrendering. That concept can be a tough pill to swallow. As a culture, we exalt and celebrate self-knowledge, reliance, and the increasing value of independence over interdependence. Surrendering has come to connote negative themes of weakness, helplessness, giving up, quitting, a country that waves its white flag and begs for mercy. Wipe that image out of your mind. Reframe the notion of surrender as an act of strength, hope, and commitment. Even if we do not quite know what or to whom we are surrendering, or the exact intricacies of this abstract construct, we are still acknowledging that we cannot handle our problems alone, and we are thus inviting help, allowing help. So I think that's a good segue, because that's the very, very beginning stages of even praying for the willingness to be willing to accept help outside of myself.
I am terrified of this conversation.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, because as you were reading, I was sitting there thinking about a lot of the times when I think about recovery, I don't always think about, which is probably a good thing. I don't necessarily always equate it to my alcoholism anymore. After or drinking, the act of drinking and using, right? And when I was first in recovery, that's what I did. Obviously, that's what we do. But as I listened to your reading, I was like, I'm equating it to, what am I not letting go of today? What do I need help with right now? And then that's where I start to get squirmy, right? Because I'm like, oh, this is reminding me of what I'm going through right now, and I don't like that. I don't like any of that stuff. I like to be in control. So okay. But before we get into anything, So are we
Yes, I'd
segueing
love to
into
hear from you.
this reading?
Yes.
Okay. So then my reading is from March 24th, and it says, it is March 24th already. Oh my God.
I
It just
know, I
seems
can't
crazy.
believe it.
Okay. When we drank or used, some of us vaguely understood a higher power. We viewed God as something or someone we only reached out to when things got tough. In jail, we hit our knees and begged to get out of this one and promised that we would never do this shit again. Only we would do that shit again. Maybe you prayed for the room to stop spinning and throwing up that cheeseburger and fries you just poured down your throat. Either way, your idea of connecting to a higher power was more of a hotline than any spiritual endeavor. Today in recovery, we try to have a relationship with this power we call God, quote unquote, or our higher power, quote unquote. As we go about our day, we can have an ongoing conversation that can develop into loving guidance that we seem to connect with more often than not. For some, it's not an easy practice to begin. For others, it's near impossible. But it can be done if you remain honest, open-minded, and willing. Seeking this connection may be the inner strength you have been looking for this whole time. Reflections. Do you have a relationship with your higher power? Daily challenge. Try a new food today. Stop eating the same thing. Variety is the spice of life. Okay. So, Lindsey, what do you, before recovery, what was your concept of higher power? Did you have any kind of relationship with, quote unquote, a God or a higher power?
I didn't at that point. I was raised Christian, Episcopalian, and went to Catholic school and all of that. And I did feel very close to that concept for a while until I started living so off base from that. So at this point, it had probably been about at least 10, 15 years since I had even spoken to God or thought about it too much because I felt so much shame. So at that point, I believed in something, but nothing that I wanted really anything to do with. So I had to kind of reconfigure how I was to adapt my idea of a higher power in this new way, which is why recovery really helped me with that because the concept of higher power is such a flexible, personal thing. But how about you?
Oh, I was a complete atheist. Like I had nothing to do
okay.
Yeah, I had nothing to do with any kind of God. I actually, I remember even coming back at the age of 42, listening to people talk about their gods, and I would share, like probably like whatever, 8 months in, and I would share, like, the way I view it is, your belief in God is a sign of your lack of intelligence. That's kind of, and I would literally I would have the balls enough to say that to people and still be in recovery. You know what I mean? It was just like, it was kind of like one of those really weird things, or in the rooms anyway, not just in recovery. But yeah, that's the idea around it, right? So I had, I had the vanilla ice philosophy of life, right? If there's a problem, I'll solve it.
Which is the paragon of intelligence.
Right?
So, of course.
Just a pinnacle right there. Yeah. So, because everything was all up to me, right? If there's a problem, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna solve it. I'm fixing it. Whatever, right? And it just needs more thought and elbow grease. That's it. Like anything beyond that is just fucking pointless because it's all.
Did you also see it when you saw it as a lack of intelligence? Did you also view people's reliance on a higher power as weakness?
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like to me, it's like that.
Me too.
It just seems like a feeble mind. I was just like, oh, are you retarded? I know you can't use that word anymore, but but I can use it in this context. That's for sure.
You defunct.
So, because that's how I thought. That's how I acted. So that was the thing. Is I just viewed it as so, like, I don't know, just simple-minded, period. Like there was no other way around it. And I had no tolerance for people who wanted to share anything above and beyond that. You know, it's funny. I just went to visit an old friend, and I was sharing over dinner about spirituality in a sense. And so she's an atheist, which is so funny because she knows that I was an atheist, right? So so it's like an old friend. So she's looking at me like I could just see in her face, like she's looking at me the same way that I would look at those other people. And the fact is, and I wanted to stop her and say, like, don't you know that like I used to be you, right? And like, you know what I mean? Like, don't you know that like for 42 years I was that, And then, moreover, though, like I think I say atheist, but they say there's no atheists in foxholes, right?
True.
And I used to do like the reading, I would pray for the room to stop spinning. I was in jail and praying, God, get me out of this one. I promise I'll never do it again. I did all that stuff. So I couldn't say that I was necessarily like a devout atheist as much as I was a opportunistic agnostic.
Yeah, and isn't it funny that all humans even animals in a dire situation will cry to something, crying out for help, right? So whether that's praying, whether that's saying help me, like we all have this innate instinct to look outside of ourselves for help. So I see that in and of itself as proof of the existence of something greater, right?
Yeah. And I can tell you, like, for me, this last time at the age of 42, because I had done all the things that I thought that I got self-help books, I read those kinds of things.
Of course.
I do like a program, or I get more into education, or I just need a better job, I need a better car, I need a better house, I need a better wife, I need a better whatever. Like I did all these things, and in the end, it's like I'm still totally dependent on alcohol, and I'm drinking on a Thursday night, and I'm done, and I'm at my end. And you're right, like you get in those crisis moments, and so I cry out to God, and I am like, I'm doing that sobbing, deep sob cry, trying not to wake my family because I can't control even. I'm doing it out loud, and our house is pretty echoey, and it's like, I don't know, like 11:30, 12 at night or something, and I'm crying out to God to please help me because I just can't do this anymore. Please just release me from this shit. And then the weird part is I woke up the next day and felt relief, and then I went the next 8 months thinking, oh yeah, this is all me, I'm doing this. You know what I mean? Because I got, because I went and, but even my wife mentioned later, she said there was a change in me that day, like the day that like I actually reached out to her that next day, and I said, hey, I need to do something different. I need to help. I need to get something for my sleep. I need to get some melatonin, whatever I was doing at the time, to try it. And I need your help to not do this anymore, Wow. And then so looking back, for like 8 months basically, I thought it was all me at that point. I really did. I thought that I was like, because I was doing this and I was doing that and and the truth is like at that point, if I really looked back, I was like, oh yeah, that first night, it didn't start with me, that's for sure. It started.
Is this in sobriety, or where is this in your timeline?
At 42, at the very first.
The very first.
10 years ago. 10 years ago. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So like
wow.
I am like this last time, I am literally crying out to God for the first time in a real sincere way.
Wow.
By myself.
I'm sure that has nothing to do, no correlation with your sobriety, right?
And I totally denied it. Like I said, for the first year, I totally denied it, right? Because I was like, I didn't want that to be part of the story. I didn't, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so,
that's so fascinating. Wow.
And then only in like the last 5 years do I even really have the ability to like acknowledge that and then be able to talk about it and then kind of feel okay with it, because my intellect wants to fight all that shit. My intellect wants to say, You know what I mean? Like, no, it's none of that stuff. How
Oh,
could it
why do
be?
we do that? Why do we do that?
I don't know. Do you do that? Do you have
Yeah,
like a
I
yeah?
think all humans do. I think we have this skeptical nature where we just keep trying to apply our rational minds. And we especially in the Western world just value the scientific method over everything and prove it, prove it, prove it, prove it to me, when there's so much more we don't know than we do.
See, I think it's because I always have this song in my head of doesn't matter whatever the topic is. There's always like a song that goes with it, right? And then in this one, it's like I've got the power, that kind of shit like that. So that's all that I can hear when
That's
I'm
your soundtrack to
yeah
this episode.
when I'm running around.
That's the score.
Yeah, that's it. So no, I really think just like the big book talks about, self-reliance, right?
Yeah.
It's like, and I think that it does work on a lot of levels. And I think, that's what we talk about. They talk about like, we can, God gave us a will to use, quote unquote.
Yeah.
And so that's where I go, okay, and that's true. And we are to do that. And that's where I have a really hard time maybe with because there's a spectrum of like, of woo-woo-ness, I guess. I don't even know what to call it. People be like, same thing I think we talked about a little bit on the last time, getting into you're starving, you get into a closet and you pray for a hot dog and, what do you get? Like, you starve, you die. Because the fact is like, you have the ability to get up and, go get a hot dog, get a whatever, get the money to provide one, whatever, etc. So all these things are there for you, but it's your participation that is needed, right? And it's
Definitely.
so it's like it's a lot of the So when I think about a higher power and this kind of stuff, I no longer think about it like as like a Santa Claus God or I'm like I'm spinning and I'm praying for that to stop. It's like what I do now is I look at this connection in recovery over like the last 10 years. It's so funny because it's like what we're really talking about is a spiritual awakening, right? It's like, and so, which is the ultimate, like that's what our goal is in terms of the 12-step recovery and this kind of stuff. But so for me, I look at it as participating with the divine. I don't look at it as like, I pray for something and then I get X, Y, or Z, right? It doesn't just show up like Amazon.
Correct.
Right? I'm not praying to Jeff Bezos, though I have heard that it might work. Anyway. In the future. Anyway. So, but no, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have that. Like, I really feel like I have a responsibility to participate with the divine, and I have to take the time to listen. I have a question on that one. So, I mean, your book being Spirit Vigilante, it really does kind of like, lean into that. So how do you listen? Like, what do you do in order to, because I mean, some people hear words, some people get visions. I don't know. But I think for the majority of people, it really isn't about those things. It's about something else. So what your take on that? What is it about listening or hearing your higher power, quote unquote, or having that conversation, quote unquote? What is that?
Yeah, so I agree with you about praying. I don't pray for a certain thing. I pray for guidance and direction and how can I contribute? Like, what's my purpose today in this moment? Please, how can I serve you? And how do I listen for the answer? So I know my answer for everything is writing. And so I literally will ask kind of questions in my writing or in my mind. And listening for the answers to me is just going about my day, taking the next right step and seeing where I'm being led through signs and synchronicity, through following my intuition, like, oh, go this way and see what happens. Or, this person invited you to this event. Maybe maybe it makes no sense for you to go, but maybe go and see. And then, I meet somebody who takes me to the next thing I'm supposed to go to. And so that might sound that's very vague and broad for somebody who might need more concrete advice. It shows up differently for everybody though. So at the beginning, it was taking suggestion, right? Like that, I think God, higher power, speaks through other people. So you're not, most of us aren't going to have a burning bush moment. And as the big book says,
I light my privates on fire.
Unless you, there's always that.
Sorry, that's my improv skills kicking in.
I know you're practicing for your showcase.
Yeah.
That's okay. I can be your guinea pig.
Yeah, so is my therapist. My therapist really hates me.
Oh my God,
She's
I
like,
love
stop,
it.
just stop.
Hilarious.
She's like, how do you feel about that? Well, I don't know. Let me light my genitals on fire.
Well, sometimes not having the answer is the answer too, right? Like asking something and not getting an answer is an answer in and of itself. And so, yeah, just taking suggestion, taking guidance, pretty much at the beginning, opposite of everything my first thought was. I don't know how to do this. Let me listen to someone who does. And so as we talk about the skeptical nature and higher power and all of that, I'm sure people listening, because this is how I would be, would think all of this was just BS. And I would say to them, if everything you're doing now is working great for you, keep doing it. Don't know why you're listening to this podcast. Besides, as I always say, we're awesome to listen to, whether you're an alcoholic or not. But yeah, then don't try it. But if maybe you would like your life to look a little bit different, entertain the idea of accessing something and recruiting something else as a resource to lead you.
So talk to me about because you're totally tapping my attitude, which is like I thought that this was bullshit too.
Yeah,
I did for like the first year, honestly. Like I sat in the meetings, 12-step land, and I was just like, yeah, I can skip all that other bullshit. I just,
Yeah.
And I even got the universal 12 steps. You know what those are? It's like, they just exclude the word God. Actually, there's a universal big book. It just excludes God altogether. It has its own chapter basically about like, rather than trying to convince you about God, it just moves into basically, kind of the program, right? So,
Yeah.
So you can do this, by the way, without God,
Oh,
without
yeah,
that
definitely.
kind of stuff. There's a lot to be had out of the, what we do, which I got the benefit of that. But I think one of the things though is, and this is what got me on my spiritual path. This is really weird. So I got my second sponsor. My first sponsor was an atheist, by the way. He was on this podcast for some time, and actually he was part of the one that kind of got it going. And he was a very smart dude, and it was very fun. And then that was kind of like the premise of the podcast to a certain degree. I was still agnostic when I came on, very much agnostic. And I still think I am to a certain degree. I'm agnostically inclined. And then, but I do lean more towards, again, the honest words of, yes, I have quote unquote a faith today that I did not have before. But here's where it started. So I got my second sponsor about after, whatever, close to a year of my sobriety. And he said things like, this is what got me. This is why I asked him to be my sponsor. He said, you are not who you think you are, and the 12 steps are not, what you think it is, right? And I just was like, I want to know what the hell he's talking about.
Yeah.
Because it sounded like a mystery, right? And
like very cryptic.
Yeah, and I was totally, I wanted to know. And then the other thing is like, then I was, in my second year when I redid the steps, I basically did the steps in the way of like, very prescriptive of like, I followed a little program. And honestly, that along with my sponsor really kind of changed my perspective and about how, tapping that unsuspected inner resource that we talk about, and I started to understand that there was like more to me. And the one thing it gave me initially, which I was so happy to find. Hey, there's I'm just going to go off track a little bit. In Headspace, I'm listening to Headspace, and there's these meditations, there's these guided meditations, and one of them is about going for a walk or whatever, and it has this visualization, and it talks about like, it starts with this visualization of like a little light inside your chest, basically, and you take this little light, and then it gets bigger, and it gets bigger, and it gets bigger, and it's all encompassing to a certain point. And at the very end, the girl on the recording says, "It's like a little light inside you." Right, and all
this
I could
little light
exactly. As soon as she says that, all I could hear is this little light.
That's all I could hear.
Yeah, exactly. And then, but along with that is like, and maybe it's just like our upbringings, maybe it's just our culture, maybe it's our society or whatever. But there was a part in all of that when I was going through this process of trying to find that intuitive nature that you rely on, and there was a part. And maybe it was from the big book or somewhere else, but that I had inherent value just by existing. And that thought, for me, tied to a higher power was like, oh, like I have worth and value. And I never had that before, just by existing, right? Because to me, I was always a piece of shit and always low on the totem pole no matter what. But then it gave me like a different, it helped me walk a little lighter, right? And then also then to understand like I had a little light inside of me.
Our little light.
And my little light was gonna shine, dang it. It was gonna shine.
Shining. I'm validating you. It's so bright.
So I don't know what I'm saying all that for, other than to say like just that little bit of like guidance, from first of all, from another person. Right, and that little mystery to solve, and that little engagement, really sparked my imagination. Could have sparked my imagination with a little light inside of me. And then and again, along with all the same things, the meditations, the readings, the participation in meetings, having a sponsor to guide me who also has a relationship with the higher power, who I don't deny that he has one, right? Because it's true for him. What's true for him is good for him, but I'm like, fuck that. I would rather like get busy and, write some shit down and do some elbow grease or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't believe in any of that woo-woo bullshit. But over a period of time, I really do come to understand myself differently as I'm challenged with these new concepts, because I remained open, willing, and honest about what I was going through. That's the other thing. Yes. Did you ever have to challenge somebody, like, or yourself, like with somebody else, to say, like, did you ever have a sponsor say, Lindsey, like, challenge you about your relationship or your understanding of a higher power? Have you ever had that happen?
I've had that happen in the sense of my codependency of like really struggling with other people and wondering why they couldn't recover, and my sponsor saying like that they have their own higher power and that God loves them just as much as he loves me. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah, so it's not your job, Lindsey.
Right. God has no, like they say, God has no grandchildren, right? Like it's not, the parent can't be the in between. Each of your kids has their own. Each of my chickens has their own higher power. Sorry, kidless chicken lady joke.
You better watch out. Your chickens might have their own God and rise up against you some point, carrying little spears and shit.
What I do know is that you have to be open to it. If you go into the attitude of, okay, I'll try this higher power just to like prove that it doesn't work, it's not, I think it was Wayne Dyer, I don't know if he came up with this or if I just heard it in a speech, but he said, instead of like the attitude of, oh, I'll believe it when I see it, switching that to, I'll see it when I believe it, which is such a more beautiful way to live, great. And some of this comes to us, as William James says in the book, of more of the educational variety. Mm-hmm. So, wow, learning about these things and why not look at it as this opening up to this world of magic and really believing it and really tuning in. And then well, we know this stuff. We create our reality based on what we're feeling inside. So
It's kind of like the idea of, and this is how I related it to sometimes anyway. It's like, I would rather go through life believing that I'm an alcoholic, right,
1,000%.
than trying to convince you that I'm not, right?
Yep.
And so a little bit of that, I guess, homespun knowledge or education is in that statement that you could apply to a higher power in this case, right?
Yeah, I think it's like
yeah.
Pascal's wager or something. If you can believe
let's
it.
go deep. She said Pascal's wager. Holy shit! Hold on, let me get my phone out. I'm gonna fuck. Oh, God. Chat GPT, tell me about Pascal's wager.
It's like there's 4 options. Like I can either believe God and it's not real, not believe in it, but the safest one is to believe it. Because what if it is real and you don't believe it? It's basically the deduction, correct? The deduction of Pascal's wager. It's like with these options, just believe it. Come on,
just because I guess because the first 3 options are basically all kind of pointless, right?
Yeah.
1, nothing is nothing. 2, it's like whatever.
Right,
I get
right.
it. Yeah.
Well, like what if I believe it and it's not real? There's not really any loss in that. But not believing it and it is real, it's you kind of wasted a lot of good stuff that could happen.
So I do want to say that I still have issue with a deity, right? So I just put it on the table. There's a lot of times, we don't talk about this stuff specifically in meetings for a reason, right? Creates argument, creates divisiveness. People say, I don't believe like that. You're a fucking fool or whatever they do, right?
That's why we have the traditions.
Yeah, right. So again, we're not, but I'm just going to say, I don't have like a deity sense of a higher power. Like, I don't believe that there's a dude up there with a staff and a beard and people moving chess pieces or whatever. Right. Yeah. So I just don't have that. I also feel like my God doesn't have a personality, doesn't know hate or fear or, any of those types of weird, doesn't have personal attributes, because if he did, he would be too human for me, right? Like, I just couldn't do that. I just then we would have faults, right? And I'm like, no, I can't. So there's also a certain limit that I reserve, that I don't like. We talk about in the big book. I gave up the debating society, right? So I no longer had to debate whether it was true for you or real for you or your opinion about it or outside of my little recovery my space. I literally looked at, and in my step work, I put down like, what personal attributes does God have to have in order for me to have a relationship with him, right?
Yeah, it's a great exercise.
And I was like, oh yeah, this is beautiful. Like, I was like, loving, like you're just like,
it's like like a Tinder profile, like what you want.
Man, I was swiping
other person. Make it exactly in your conception.
And all I can think about now is getting sexual with my higher power.
God.
Thank you very much, Lindsay. You really now my brain is all like, we're gonna go on a date. No. He's gonna ask me to pay. I'm gonna say no. It's gonna be a problem.
Just for a second. Just for a second. Just
anyway.
the tip.
We'll just lay there naked. Nothing will happen. It's really weird. We'll just lay in our underwear. Whatever. Okay, so. Why, God, why are you doing this?
That was my fault.
No, that's totally mine. But I don't even know what we're talking about now. Oh yeah, so yeah, the attributes. So to me, it was like I just needed to start with that basic premise of like what attributes would I need in order to be able to participate with this type. And that's why it talks about in the big book, you can create your own conception of God. And I was just like, oh, so I don't need to go along with any religion. I don't need to go along with any other philosophies, any other kind of like, Vishnu, whatever, Jesus Christ. Yeah. I don't need to do any of those things. I can literally start there. And that's and by the way, so I just want to jump the decade now. You're talking to a guy who literally will like, who literally downloaded the Bible Project and watches like biblical videos today. Like I watch this stuff. Like,
isn't that funny to
think like,
about?
And I'm not like, I'm not all Jeezy crazy or anything. Like I'm not all, but I'm interested. Right. And so, But whereas before, it's like, to me, it was always like, I don't need to learn that stuff. You know what I mean? It's a waste of my time. Today, I actually I'll be like going on a walk and I'll be like, oh, there's a 6-minute video on, I don't Moses or whatever.
Yeah.
that kind of stuff. So huge difference in thinking, behaviors, actions, reactions. You know what I mean? Like in mindset about what that is. Before, I would go out of my way to make sure you knew, your beliefs were not welcome and you were a fucking fool for doing so. So
yeah, and I think that's where the open-mindedness comes in, and where it just expands our worldviews on everything, to look at life with an open mind. Because I was the same thing in so many areas beyond religion. And I'm not tied to a specific organized religion either. I think we can all learn from all of them. Like Jesus Christ, I think there's really great stories in that. I do think he existed. They all are like, this messaging in all of them is so similar. If we just try to see where
exactly
we're the same rather than where we're different. I believe my God's very loving, not a punishing God. I don't think I can offend my God by saying his name in vain. I think this all-powerful person doesn't get their feelings hurt. And that I don't believe I was born in sin and damnation, and that my life is to prove that I'm not guilty. That's not how a God of love, to me, would operate.
Yeah, I think you wouldn't be sitting here if we didn't have very similar flavors of spirituality in our recovery, right? I think that's but not that I didn't do that. Again, when the podcast first started, it was, we sat there with an atheist, a believer, and an agnostic, and we had those discussions very openly, which I thought was really interesting. And isn't it funny that 10 years later or whatever, 8 years later, I move on and I think that I'm less agnostic at that point. So it's just really neat how this stuff works. So I guess have you ever read there's the brochure, the God Problem, for the AA materials? Have you ever read?
No, I've seen it, but I haven't read it.
Yeah. It's one of the first ones I grabbed.
Of course. I have a big problem.
I had huge problem. So then you're reading today. You talk about this surrender and letting go and viewing that more of a positive than a negative, and it's funny because I deal with that in terms of still relationships. My codependency is still a big part of that.
Yes.
So
yes.
I still really look for ways that I can quote unquote let go and let God. And that is and so when you're reading that, that's what I was talking about for today. So yeah, it may not be about me struggling with, taking a drink and having to let go and let God in that sense, but it has to do with behaviors and patterns and attitudes and habits and all the other things that I find not awesome in my life. Right.
Yeah.
And I find
not ideal.
Yeah. And I still try to, I still try to find acceptance a lot. And it's really tough. So when you're saying that, here's a good example. I was a year into recovery. I actually wrote into another podcast, the Recovered Cast, and they had an artist on. He was coming back on, and they were doing these live chats. And I said in this live chat, I was I was having trouble with I was having a creative block because I couldn't get back to work anymore. Where once I felt like I could always just kind of, approach a blank page and just kind of do what I was doing and just start doing stuff. At one point, I felt like I had this creative block and that I wasn't going to be able to do it anymore. And then this artist, who was a comic book artist, again, I'm a commercial artist. He said the most, I felt at the time, the most useless information. He said, "Have you tried praying about it?"
I hear that all the time.
I was absolutely fucking not. But you know what? No, wait.
I'll pray about it. I'll pray for them, all right?
My initial
Have you heard
reaction,
that song? I'll pray that they run into a ditch.
Yeah. I'll pray for them. That they get what's coming to them no matter what.
Yeah, exactly.
But so I did, my first reaction was fuck that, like whatever. But then my second thought was, well, what have I got to lose, right? Like, and I did, and of course, I can always attribute it coming back to time or to effort or to, things just went better, or I got whatever, I just felt better, therefore I was able to perform better.
Or
whatever.
Pascal's wager.
Right? Yeah. But the thing is, so I just went and prayed, and I did pray about it. I was like, I really prayed that I like get that to come back, and that that I was able to just participate differently. And whether it's true or not doesn't fucking matter. Right?
Right.
The fact is like, I did that because I needed to do that. For whatever reason, it's like, because in your reading, it talks about it, letting go, right? Mm-hmm. Because for whatever reason, I no longer had that thing, that spark, that creativity, whatever that was, it was gone. And I felt like it was, again, it was my livelihood, it was my family, it was my things, all these things totally out of my control. And I like absolutely needed to put this in something else's, box, because I was, you know what I mean? Like I was fucked if I didn't get that.
And what a relief that you have the option to lean on something else for it, right? Mm-hmm. That you don't have to fix it yourself and try to control everything.
And what that does for me is it frees me up. It frees up that energy that I was needlessly wasting trying to manage, quote unquote, my shit, Yeah. And then that reminds me of, again, today, right? So what am I doing today that I'm having trouble with? What is it that I am still trying to control? What is it I'm still trying to... You're reading totally like... I was like, God damn, I hate you. God damn it, I hate you. Get it? All right.
Yes.
So, Lindsey, what are you doing today that you still have struggle with, that, like from that that you need to pick up the spiritual payphone on?
I do. I need to call collect. I'm gonna go find an actual payphone. Probably trusting God with my career and the way that's going, and the procrastination and stuff that we talked about recently, and knowing that spirituality can apply to those things too, and not seeing them as separate boxes, like, oh, this is my spiritual life and then this is real life. Like, this is real life and numbers and literal things, because I find the more things I bring my spirituality into, the better they get. So that is, so I think that's where I'm applying it today, and really trying to let go, which is scary, because we're told to not, for these seemingly finite issues, to not trust the infinite. But I really believe bringing God into that is the answer.
Yeah, we don't invite a lot of that in, especially when you're on TikTok and you're like, or you're on LinkedIn, and the business advice dude comes up and he says, try this, that, this, and the other. There's not a single time that somebody says, confusing. Hey, have you tried praying?
Right. Will you remind me of that when I'm like, oh,
so and I know it seems weird to people, like to a certain degree, like if you were to listen to this podcast from the very beginning in 2018 and you heard me like talking in 2018,
probably think we're wackos.
People I'm sure they're like, I remember listening to him in 2018. He didn't sound anything like this. so it's literally.
So what do you do?
What's that? Oh, I was just to say, one of the things that, like, when I went through the step work, and then my third year, my sponsor gave me a plaque, and it was the third step prayer.
I love the third step.
And before that, I was like, and he gave it to me, and I was like, even in my 30s, I'm like, you're trying to get me to, you're still trying to put me in that shit, right. Like, fuck you, that was written in 1950. There ain't no fucking thee thous. You wrote it in 1950. You're a fucking old English fucking Bill W. motherfucker. Fuck you, right? Who are you trying to kid? It ain't no, that shit ain't in the Bible, motherfucker. Anyway, sorry. Look at
'cause
me.
you were so-
I
'cause
just
you were-
said the F word like 1,000 times.
Because
I'm
you were
sorry.
so in agreement with the Bible. So like the fact that it wasn't in the Bible was what
Right?
that's where you drew the line.
Yeah. So my sponsor gives me this like little ceramic plaque, and for my third year anniversary, and
Third year. Got it.
yeah, and then again, so I took it home, and then I only appreciate it because it was from him, right? So I put it up next to my computer, hidden in the back, so nobody else could see it in my home office, kind of a thing, and so nobody could, see that I had any kind of religious thing
Of course
going on.
not.
So I hung it back there, and so only I could see it, basically. And then and I would meditate, and then I wanted to memorize it, and because that was kind of like part of the homework in the big book. But it also says like the wording is quite optional, which I understood. So I was like, okay. So I understood the meaning. That's how I did the third step to begin with. But then I really wanted to memorize it because I wanted to retain the meaning, right? And then what I ended up doing is I meditate, and I'd try to memorize, and I'd look up at the plaque with my one eye open, and I'm like, did I do it right? And it took me a little while to memorize it. I finally memorized it, and then when my sponsor died, I moved that plaque up to my bedroom and put it on my nightstand, and then I did it. Started doing it every morning. That was again, 2.5 years ago. So, but I've really come into more of a relationship with the third step, right? Because I would say it every morning, but sometimes I'd say it like, like I think I've talked about in the past, like, you're, when you go to pray to eat, it's like, look out teeth and gums, look out stomach, here it comes kind of thing. And I just check the box and move on. So for me, it's like, it becomes like, when I say that every day now, I really try to say it with like more meaning rather than just the words. And so I see it every day now when I wake up, and it's the very first thing that I do every day, and it's very much like helps me to like kind of, what it really reminds me is that this is not like, if I was in control of all this shit like I was, or like I was attempting to before recovery,
Like we thought we were.
Exactly, like we thought. Like believe me, you will get to make all the mistakes. You will get to stir the pot as much as you want. You can turn that water
You
brown
have that authority
all day long, right? You do have power. I just want to say, you do have power to fuck shit up as much as you want. And I did.
Yeah.
And that's what I understood. It's like the more I tried to manage well, do better, wrest satisfaction from this world, quote unquote, the worse it got for me. The tighter I held on, the more chickens I choked. and that was like, that was it. And so what I had to do is like, especially after my sponsor died, what happened was I realized like, wow, like we're all pretty alone out here, right? And I was just like, so I got really alone. I was like, I never felt more abandoned. And so so in my grieving, I really leaned more towards my higher power. And I was just like, okay, this is probably the lesson that I needed, right? Is that, this whole time, this is my attention could be here. And that's where I start leaning into that. And I wake up every day and I try to really ask to be, like you said, it's like with the, you're like, you ask for the, the knowledge, right, to know His will, right, and then quote unquote the power to carry that out. Yeah, that's it. Like that's in essence, that's kind of what I'm looking for. So I don't get up and pray for a hot dog or a new car or a better job or whatever. I mean, yeah, it's cool if you want to do that specifically, but to me, the program, quote unquote, the 12 steps, really just kind of point us in that direction to say, just give me the knowledge to know what to do, and then the power to do that, whatever that is. So it's kind of where I sit.
I'm curious why your like the action of the day on your reflection was trying a new food, like a new variety of food.
Because it's the same thing with thinking, right?
Okay, so trying something new.
And then that relationship to new food, it's like, you can always you can always do the same food, right? Just like you can always do the same thinking or the same.
I like that.
Same things that you've always done. It's just something that, and then again, it's also helps you to overcome fear. It's a smaller step to the idea of that, right? Because what is it in choosing the same food over and over again that like does that? Do you know what I mean? Did you do that stuff?
Yeah.
Did you eat the same foods all the time?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it's like creature of comfort, and the less decisions I had to make, right?
Right?
But yeah, I think trying something new does like a great, and that's why I asked. I figured it was something very intentional. It's like a pattern interrupt, and that can affect you in so many different ways.
Totally. And then my current sponsor, like he said, his sponsor told him, like, I want you to take a different path to work every day this week. That kind of stuff, So whether it's a new food, a new path to work, wearing different clothes, whatever it is that you feel like you need to do to shake up your thing. Because when you limit your choices, you limit your human experience. And when you're limiting your human experience, obviously you're going to go back to the things that are more comfortable for you, what you think that you know, what's good for you, et cetera. And for me, it was like, I didn't want to consider any of this stuff. I didn't want a spiritual life, quote unquote. To me, none of this shit had anything to do with not drinking. None of it. And by the way, I still have a hard time with it. I'm like, what the fuck does this have to do with sobriety? Like,
Thank God it doesn't just have to do with drinking, because I had to learn how to be a human being, alcoholic or not.
Yeah. Nature abhors a vacuum, right?
Yeah.
And so
that's
to me,
I love that.
That's what it is. It's like when I remove alcohol, drugs, and not just alcohol and drugs, but now I'm also removing, the behaviors and attitudes and actions that I normally surrounded with that behavior of drinking and drugging. And then when you take that away, if you don't fill that with something more positive or, whatever,
Productive.
oriented into a more positive framework, you're going to fill it with other stuff. And for me, that could have been any number of things. Any number of bad habits and behaviors could have. I was already eating a pint of ice cream every night. I'm like, so you know what I mean? Like in my early days of recovery, like I was headed in a whole nother direction.
Yeah.
So there's stuff that I think that when we get into the what do we say, like the principles or the virtues and values that we have in recovery, you lean into those things and you experience that to its fullest, and that's endless too, right? So that can be any number of pathways around those things that you can do, and you just change your trajectory just by getting involved with that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and I think leaning into those is such a better way to look at it, instead of trying to avoid the defects, because then we're still focused on the defects. So we're thinking, I don't want to be selfish. I don't want to be selfish. I don't want to be selfish. The universe or whatever just hears selfish. If you're trying to actualize your reality and change it, think about what you want to bring in, not what you're trying to steer clear from, if that makes sense.
Exactly. All right, Lindsey, I think we've beat this god horse to death. So, which is good. I think, we need to do that stuff. I think this is like part of the
it was a great conversation.
Yeah, I get really sad that we can't go even deeper, right? Sometimes I'm like, can we just stay in for 4 hours and record?
We can.
Well, what I do want to say to the newcomer, or to the new person is like, if you've listened this long and you didn't shut it off after the first 5 minutes, good for you. You made it this far. Awesome.
Truly.
Because it is for the people who bristle with antagonism. I was one of those, and I couldn't do it. But there's this time when I could, right? Because I was still trying. Because I was like, if these thousands of people that show up to these meetings every day say that this is the solution for them, that it really helps them, and that this is their number one thing that they hold on to, at 5, 10, 20, 30 years in, I'm like, okay, maybe there's something to this thing.
Maybe.
So
I was still I thought I knew better than all those millions of people.
Yeah. So I just try to hold on to that and say, all right, if it's worked for them, maybe it can work for me. But I also know this much. It's like, even if I would have said, 4 years ago, all right, this is my concept. This is what I'm dealing with. I'm good. I'm never going to progress in this spiritual arena ever any more than this, right? I don't have to read another book. I don't have to do the Bible Project stuff. I don't have to do any of this stuff. Like, I would be fine with that, by the way. I had a very comfortable, intuitive conversation happening with my higher power. Not a problem. But since then, I've read many other books. I've read other, philosophies. I've done different things. And so it's been really helpful and fruitful. But what I'm saying is, like, I didn't, if I would have stopped at the concept I had, which was basically what they call in 12-step recovery, like a doorknob God. If I would have stopped with a doorknob God or a chair, or, even if I would have stayed with the group, by the way, a group of drunks, if I would have stayed at that thing, I would have missed so much more enrichment and experience and love that I would have totally missed out on. So that's the idea for me, is like, I moved from group of drunks on to, again, higher power, which I love saying higher power because it's all encompassing and there's no, I try not to throw in the God word as much as possible, but but God is just a shorthand for, just a blanket that we throw over. Right. So if you're new, keep trying, keep understanding that, that it's okay to have your concept, whatever that concept may be. Don't let anybody else dictate to you otherwise. Whatever your interest or, whatever stimulates you in order, like, to reach that spiritual connection even further. It's in your time and in your pace, and as long as it's honest. Don't ever lie about your beliefs. I don't care. Like, sit in a meeting and tell the dude that's praising Jesus that you don't believe. Feel free to do that. Just tell them I said so. Right? Because really, it's like, this is about your relationship, and this is about your connection, and this is about your life and your, like, how you move forward from here. So if this is something that you're not after, whatever, do the other stuff in the meantime. Right. But if this interests you, lean in and then see what it's about, and then see how you can utilize this in order to, like, live your daily life. And what is it? In your truth, quote unquote. What do you say again?
Yeah. Trust your truth.
Yeah. So Lindsey, what do you say to the newcomer, to the person who has ye of little faith?
Ye who enter here, all hope abandon. No. So I say, you just summed it up very well. Just keep an open mind. That's really the biggest thing. Keep an open mind. And when I say open, let things in, allow, and try to trust something different. Unless everything you've done in your life to this point is working out greatly for you.
I mean, even if it is working great for you.
Even if it is working great, it work wonders. But you know what I'm saying, like.
Yeah. So.
If you found a better way, I guess is
I guess that doesn't involve, like, mushrooms or any DMT.
Yeah. The point is that's not possible. So.
I don't know. Some people argue. Okay. So, Lindsey, thank you for coming on, and thank you. And then again, I want to make sure that everybody goes in and buys your book, The Spirit Vigilante. And yours is actually, like, searchable on Amazon, is it not? Can you actually find it?
Yeah,
still?
I mean, if you Google Spirit Vigilante, you'll see my website, my Instagram, and it's on Amazon. Yeah.
Yeah, if you search for 366 effing days sober on Amazon, it does not come up. The easiest way to get your book is soberpod.com. Yeah, soberpod.com. Even though, I guess it's just the F-bombs that are in there that they don't appreciate. But, but fuck them.
I think we should offer a package deal, even if it's something that they.
I wonder if you could. Either way, I think it'd be interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
All right, yo. Well, so that's it. That's all we have to share. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share this with your friends, share this with that your favorite atheist, and
comment your thoughts or reactions, and
Yes,
I'd love to hear that.
Spotify has a comment feature, and I don't even know if
Yeah.
you have to be a subscriber now to comment. But yeah, Spotify. We've gotten a lot of Spotify comments in the past. So if you are listening on Spotify, let us know that you're listening on Spotify and comment about this episode. That would be awesome. So until next time, in the same bat station, in the same bat channel.
Yes.
I say stupid shit like stay active,
Out
stay
honor.
sober. And then what do you say, Lindsay?
For the 7th time, trust your truth.
Soberpod.com. Yeah. It was a sight to see him. Breakfast with Sprite and Seagrams. Wrestling with my vices, exercising my demons. My blessings were blocked, so I never got the message. I'm stressing, I'm only 12 steps from an exit. Regret it, because my imperfections were perfected. I ain't run from it, I accept it and rep it. It's a badge to me, good stories come from a tragedy. And when you survive, the glory will come in Act 3. The wait's over, 366 days sober. Morning affirmations that can start the day for you. Use my favorite bookmark for a placeholder. Finish when the day's over. Okay. Yeah, sober pod, keep it authentic, no facades. If it's real, then you know it's ours. Welcome.